The screen glowed, a cold, alien light against the celebrating darkness of my 38th birthday. The timestamp, 9:47 p.m., felt like a cruel joke, a mocking counterpoint to the family laughter I should have been hearing. For 5 breathless seconds, the pixelated image made no sense, a jumble of muted colors and indistinct forms. Then, the walls swam into focus, the familiar cream hue we'd painted together 3 years ago, a weekend project filled with Monica's easy smiles and my clumsy attempts at artistry. And there, draped across the navy comforter she'd ordered because it matched my eyes, was my wife. And a man I'd never seen before. They weren't merely sharing a bed, this wasn't some innocent, drunken mishap. This was a deliberate, intimate choreography of betrayal playing out in the very sanctuary I'd built for us, while I was downtown, charting stress points for a new bridge. My hands began to tremble, a violent tremor that threatened to send my phone crashing to the floor, yet I couldn't tear my gaze away. I needed to witness every agonizing frame. I needed to gauge the exact depth of the fool I'd been for 13 years. My name is irrelevant. But my profession, perhaps, sheds light on the man I was before that night. I am a civil engineer, specializing in structural bridge design. My career has been a testament to foundations, to load-bearing capacities, to the precise calculation of failure thresholds. I build things meant to last, believing implicitly in permanence, in trust, in doing things the right way. Monica, a middle school English teacher at Riverside Academy, a place where parents paid a premium for smaller classes and dedicated educators, embodied everything I cherished. We met at a charity gala when I was 25, she 23, radiant in a yellow sundress, her laughter echoing at my terrible jokes about canal lovers. 6 months later, I proposed on the same bridge where our first real conversation had unfolded. Harper arrived 2 years after our wedding, and for a time, our life was a perfectly engineered structure: the suburban house, the esteemed school district, bi-weekly date nights, a daughter who graced the honor roll and excelled at soccer. We had, by every measure, what everyone claimed to desire. That morning, she'd made blueberry pancakes, the kitchen fragrant with syrup and promise. Harper had presented me with a crayon-scribbled card, "Happy birthday, Dad," delightfully misspelled, the kind of treasure you vow to keep forever. Monica had brushed a soft kiss against my cheek, murmuring about my favorite pot roast and red potatoes for dinner. Driving to the construction site, I remember a profound sense of luck, calling my brother at lunch, boasting that life was good. Nothing, absolutely nothing, had felt out of place. The video was undeniably filmed by a hidden camera, probably one of those tiny wireless devices easily acquired online. The angle was coldly precise, encompassing the entire bed. I watched her hands trace the stranger's skin with a familiarity that once belonged solely to me. I saw the same smile she'd given me over pancakes that morning curve on her lips as she gazed at him. 11 minutes. I watched every single second, not for pleasure, but for the sharpening blade of anger it forged within me. I needed that anger, that fuel, for what was to come. When the screen went dark, I remained in my truck, parked in the grocery store lot, the bottle of Cabernet I'd intended for dinner, a nice pairing for that promised pot roast, sitting untouched beside me. 20 minutes I sat there, paralyzed, the engine idling. My first instinct was to rush home, to confront her, to shatter things, to demand answers. But then, a ghost of my father's voice whispered a warning from years ago: after a college girlfriend's betrayal, anger is a coin you can only spend once. Make sure you buy something worth having. And so, I stayed. Not yet. I needed clarity. I needed a plan. I needed to understand the true depth of this fractured foundation. I opened my bank app. For 13 years, Monica had managed our household finances, a division of labor I'd never questioned. Now, every transaction clawed at me. Unexplained cash withdrawals, 300 here, 200 there, always on the same day. Restaurant charges for places we'd never visited. A hotel booking from 2 months prior, a weekend she'd claimed was a teacher's conference. The pattern, stark and undeniable, had been there all along, while I was busy building other people's bridges. It was almost 11 when I finally drove home. The house was a dark silhouette against the suburban night, save for the porch light Monica always left on for me. Through the kitchen window, I saw her, loading the dishwasher, undoubtedly cleaning up after the birthday dinner I'd missed. Harper sat at the table, bent over homework, a picture of domestic normalcy. I watched them, a phantom outside my own life, and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, only a chilling, absolute certainty that every truth I held had been a carefully constructed lie. I was about to step out of the truck when Harper looked up, said something to Monica, and then walked out the back door. My daughter crossed the yard, climbed into a car idling in the alley. The driver was obscured, but I didn't need to see him to know. It was the man from the video. What happened next detonated the last vestiges of my world. Harper didn't just get in. She leaned across the seat, embracing him. A real hug. The kind reserved for someone familiar, comfortable, trusted. Her lips moved, and though the windows were closed, I read her words with perfect, shattering clarity. I wish you were my dad. 5 words. That was all it took. 5 words from my 12-year-old daughter. The betrayal wasn't just Monica's anymore. It was theirs. My wife hadn't simply cheated, she had replaced me. She had introduced our daughter to her lover, allowed Harper to believe this stranger was somehow better than the father who worked 60-hour weeks to pay for her private school. She had poisoned my own child against me. The car pulled away, its tail lights bleeding into the darkness. Monica emerged onto the porch, scanned the empty yard, then retreated inside, a faint smile playing on her lips. She looked happy, relieved, as if she'd just completed a difficult task and could finally relax. I didn't go inside. I drove to a hotel near the construction site, staring at the contact for Ronald Hayes, a divorce attorney my brother had used. It was almost midnight, but I typed the email anyway, *, I need to see you first thing tomorrow morning. I have video evidence of infidelity. I need to move fast, *. Then, I scrolled through my phone's photo album, stopping at Harper's last birthday. Monica, her arm around our daughter, both of them beaming at the camera. I'd taken that picture. I'd been there. I'd been part of that moment. How many other moments had I missed, busy being the good husband, the reliable provider, the man who did everything right? That night, I made a promise to myself. I would burn it all down. The marriage, the family, the enviable suburban facade. I would reduce everything she'd built with him to ash, and she would never see it coming. Ronald Hayes' office smelled of old leather and expensive coffee. He was a man of efficiency, not empathy. At 8:30 the next morning, I watched him watch the video. He nodded once, a curt, decisive movement. "This is enough," he said, then asked the question that set the rest in motion. "Do you know who he is?" I didn't. Not yet. But I would. And what I discovered was infinitely worse than a random affair. Marcus Webb, the detective I hired, returned with his findings in 48 hours. Facial recognition and social media cross-referencing revealed the man in my bed was Troy Sinclair, Monica's high school boyfriend, her first love. She'd mentioned him twice in 13 years, a casual anecdote, as if he were an ancient, irrelevant echo. He wasn't. 6 months ago, Monica had attended her 20th high school reunion. They'd reconnected. Marcus presented a manila folder filled with printed photos, like scenes from a crime show, Monica and Troy, holding hands across a restaurant table. Checking into a hotel when she claimed to be shopping with her sister. On a park bench, his arm around her. But it was the photos with Harper that froze my blood. My daughter eating ice cream with Troy. Harper and Troy at a soccer field, him teaching her to kick. Harper laughing in his living room. In every image, she looked happy, comfortable, as if this were her normal. "How long has my daughter been seeing him?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Marcus checked his notes. "About 3 months." Monica had been taking Harper to Troy's every couple of weeks, usually Saturdays, while I was working overtime on the bridge. She'd claimed friend's house, library, school activity. I'd believed her. Why wouldn't I? I was earning money for Harper's college fund, being the responsible father. While I did that, my wife was introducing our daughter to her replacement. Troy, Marcus revealed, owned a luxury car dealership. Divorced, no kids, no serious relationship since. His social media showcased expensive cars, golf trips, steak dinners. He presented an image of success, stability. He'd likely told Monica everything she wanted to hear, * she was the one who got away. They could have the life they were meant to have, * the worst, though, were the text messages Marcus recovered from Monica's cloud backup. She'd been careless with security. The messages, dating back 5 months, weren't just about sex. They were about planning. About futures. About Harper. * she asks about you all the time. She really likes you, * Monica had written. * good. We need her on board before we make this official, * Troy replied. Another exchange, * he's been working late on that bridge project. Barely notices what's happening at home, * Troy's response, * perfect. Gives us more time to prepare, * they discuss me like an obstacle to be removed, not a person, not a husband of 13 years. My hands began to shake again as I stared at the words in that downtown coffee shop. Marcus asked if I was okay. I told him I needed copies. Every photo, every message, every hotel receipt, every withdrawal. He just handed me a nuclear arsenal. Ronald had warned me that divorce cases with this kind of evidence usually settled quickly. But I didn't want a settlement. I wanted destruction. The first thing I did was change the locks. The morning Monica took Harper to school, a locksmith was at the house within the hour. Then, the bank, half of our joint savings moved into an account she couldn't touch. Legal, but devastating. I cancelled our joint credit cards. Removed her as a beneficiary from my insurance. 13 years of financial entanglement unraveled in 6 cold, precise hours, like performing surgery on myself without anesthesia. Ronald filed the divorce papers that afternoon. My specific request: serve Monica at work. 5th period English, 2:15. I knew a process server would find her in her classroom, 25 students watching. At 2:30, he walked in, asked for Monica Hartley, and handed her the envelope. One of Harper's friends was in that class. I'd checked the online roster. I wanted her to feel the public humiliation I'd felt watching that video. I wanted her to understand her perfectly constructed double life was over. I didn't go home that day either. I returned to the same hotel. My phone began to ring. Monica. 16 missed calls before I finally answered. Her voice, when it came, was a frayed thread of anger and confusion. "What the hell is this?" she demanded. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. "You know exactly what it is," I said, then hung up. She called back immediately. 7 voicemails followed, each more desperate than the last: confusion, anger, bargaining, then full-blown panic. But I was done listening. Monica and Harper arrived at the house around 6 that evening. I watched them on my phone, thanks to the security cameras I'd installed the day before, the same kind that had captured my betrayal. They tried the front door, then the back, then stood in the driveway, bewildered. Harper was crying. Monica was on her phone, undoubtedly trying to call me again. Then she did it. She called Troy. I couldn't hear, but I watched her pace the driveway for 10 minutes while Harper sat weeping on the steps. 20 minutes later, Troy's car pulled up. He got out, put his arm around Harper, and the 3 of them stood there, a tableau of family. My family. Except I wasn't in it anymore. That night, Harper texted me, "Dad, why are you doing this? Mom is crying and we can't get into the house." I stared at it for a long time. I wanted to explain everything: the video, the lies, the months of calculated deceit. But she was 12, and she'd already chosen her side. So, I wrote back, "Ask your mother." She didn't reply. The next morning, I sent copies of everything to Monica's principal at Riverside Academy: photos, texts, hotel receipts. Their employment contract included a morality clause. An affair was damaging enough, but the messages discussing Harper's manipulation and her exit strategy while still married were indefensible. The principal called me personally that afternoon, his voice strained. An investigation was underway. Monica's phone, I imagined, was ringing off the hook. Colleagues, parents, her carefully manicured reputation crumbling in real time. Ronald called that evening with an update. Monica had hired Preston Cole, a lawyer known for defending the indefensible. They wanted to negotiate terms, settlement, custody, asset division. Ronald asked what I wanted. My answer surprised even him: full custody. The house. And I want her to admit fault in writing. He paused. That's aggressive. I don't care, I said. I have the evidence. I have the moral high ground. And I have nothing left to lose. But later that night, lying awake in my hotel room, a new, brutal realization dawned. Harper wouldn't choose me. She'd spent months building a relationship with Troy while I was absent. She'd wished he was her father. Even if I won custody, forced her to live with me, she would resent me for destroying her mother's life. She would hate me for taking her away from the man she'd been taught to see as superior. I couldn't win this battle. My only choice was whether to fight a war I'd already lost or walk away with what little dignity remained. And so, I made a decision most would call unforgivable. I decided to let Harper go. Not because I didn't love her, but because forcing her to stay would destroy us both. I texted Monica one final message: you wanted him. Now he's all you've got. The divorce took 4 months, remarkably fast, Ronald said, given Preston Cole's scorched earth tactics. He argued the video was illegally obtained, that I was an absent father, that the affair started post-separation. None of it mattered. The evidence was overwhelming. The judge's face, as he read Monica's texts about manipulating Harper, said everything. Monica lost on every front, save the one that mattered most to her: she kept Harper. The custody hearing was where everything truly collapsed. Harper was old enough for the judge to consider her preferences. She sat in the courtroom wearing the soccer jersey Troy had bought her, her face set. When asked where she wanted to live, she didn't hesitate. With her mother. I was never home anyway, she said. Troy understood her better. And then, she looked directly at me. He actually shows up. I watched my daughter testify against me as if I were a stranger. And I knew Monica had won the only battle that truly mattered. She had turned Harper against me so completely that no court order could mend it. Ronald pulled me aside afterward. We could fight it, he said. Bring in therapists, argue parental alienation, drag it out for another year. But I was exhausted. For months of hotels, of burying myself in work, watching my life disintegrate. I knew the unspoken truth: even if I won, Harper would hate me. She'd resent me for tearing her from Monica and Troy, counting the days until she turned 18. So, I made a decision that stunned everyone. I told Ronald to withdraw my custody petition. I signed away my parental rights voluntarily. I agreed to pay child support, but requested no visitation. The judge asked twice if I understood. Yes, I said, both times. Harper wasn't my daughter anymore. She'd made that clear. I wouldn't spend the next 6 years fighting for someone who didn't want me. Monica's face as I signed those papers is etched in my memory. She'd expected a war, years of court battles, suffering. But I'd simply given her everything she wanted. There was no victory for her in that moment, because I had surrendered on my own terms. I walked out of that courthouse and never looked back. The professional consequences for Monica were swift. 3 weeks after the divorce was filed, Riverside Academy fired her. Their investigation had uncovered explicit emails sent from her school account to Troy. Her union rep, after reviewing the evidence, advised her to walk away quietly. She ended up at a public school across town, earning half her previous salary. Through mutual friends, I heard she sold her car to cover rent. Troy, it turned out, was less generous when the affair became public and messy, when there were legal bills and financial consequences. They lasted 6 months post-divorce. Then he broke up with her via text. The reality of full-time Monica, apparently, wasn't as thrilling as the illicit affair. 2 months after the divorce, I left. A job in Denver, a major infrastructure project. I sold the house, packed everything I owned into a moving truck, and drove 12 hours west without a single goodbye. I deleted my social media. Changed my number. Cut ties with any mutual friends who tried to be neutral or, worse, suggested I forgive Monica for Harper's sake. I built a new life from scratch. And for the first time in over a year, I could breathe. Therapy helped, more than I'd ever imagined. My new company mandated it as part of their wellness program. Dr. Rebecca Walsh, my therapist, wouldn't let me pretend I was fine. She made me talk about Harper. Made me admit that walking away from my daughter was the hardest thing I'd ever done. She taught me that sometimes, loving someone means letting them go, even if it tears you apart. It took almost a year of weekly sessions before I could speak of that custody hearing without feeling like I was drowning. Work became my salvation. 16-hour days, impossible problems. I earned a reputation. 2 promotions in 18 months. Consulting gigs, designing bridges in cities I'd never heard of, meeting people who knew nothing of my past. I dated, casually. Dinner, conversation, women who didn't ask too many questions about children. I learned to live with the empty space where my family used to be. 3 years after the divorce, a letter arrived, forwarded through Ronald's office. From Harper. 15, almost 16 now. It sat on my kitchen counter for 2 weeks. I'd pick it up, feel the weight of those pages, imagine the words. But I never opened it. I knew what it would say: apologies, explanations, a plea for a second chance. None of it would change what happened in that courtroom. Harper had made her choice, wearing Troy's soccer jersey, telling a judge I never showed up. She'd made her choice, hugging him in that alley, wishing he was her father. And I had made mine, signing away my rights rather than forcing her to live with someone she didn't want. So I wrote "Return to Sender" on the envelope and mailed it back to Ronald's office, with instructions: do not forward anything else from her, some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. 6 months after that letter, I met Jennifer. An architect on the same project, divorced, no children. She understood what it meant to start over. We took things slow, a year of dating before moving in, then an engagement on a California beach, with only seagulls as witnesses. She never pushed me about Harper. Never suggested family was more important than self-preservation. She loved me, damaged parts and all. We married in a small ceremony, 10 people. And for the first time since my 38th birthday, I felt exactly where I was supposed to be. Sometimes people ask if I regret walking away from Harper. If I wonder what she's doing, if I ever think of reaching out. And the honest answer is yes, sometimes I do. But then I remember sitting in my truck, watching my daughter hug another man and wish he was her father. I remember her testimony in that courtroom. I remember 3 years of silence before she decided she needed me again. And I know some relationships aren't worth saving, even when they're supposed to be sacred. Monica wanted to replace me, she succeeded. Harper wanted a different father, I gave her that freedom. They both got exactly what they asked for, and I got my life back. I am not the same person I was before that video. I am harder now, more cautious, less trusting. But I am also free. Free from the weight of people who didn't value me. Free from the obligation to fix things others broke. Free to build something new with someone who genuinely wants to be there. And that, I've learned, is worth more than any bridge I've ever designed. You decide which relationships deserve your foundation and which ones you leave as ruins in your past. But what happens when the very foundations you've painstakingly built become the instruments of your own undoing?